Okay, good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Just like nod or shit. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to people who submitted questions. Um, Before we get started, tonight's class is sponsored by Miriam Friedman to mark the seventh Yortzeit of her father, Dr. George Weiss, alav shalom. And of course, as we always say, we're always grateful to Miriam for her organization of this class, and the very fact that this class exists is a schus to her, and certainly a schus to her father's neshama. Thank you for sponsoring it in his honor. Miriam submitted something about Dr. Weiss and shopping, a very, very heartwarming. I'm just going to read it. My father was not a big time shopper, but he loved to get the family gifts. He traveled the world for his work and spent a lot of time in Israel and Spain. And as a result, my mother and I would always end up with pieces of beautiful jewelry. He also bought house items, games, t-shirts, and artwork always for the family. He had impeccable taste when it came to others, but didn't pay much attention to his own wardrobe. That's very, very heartwarming. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Miriam. Thank you. Okay, I didn't really know what to speak about tonight, so I decided to make a list of the 25 items I most like to buy and the 50 items I'm most afraid of buying. And I figured we'd just discuss that. No, I'm sorry. Okay, so there were some questions submitted, not so many. My guess is what normally occurs here is I'll go through the questions, and those questions will spark some thoughts for people. You're welcome to submit things in the chat as they occur to you. I'm not gonna go through the chat until we've gone through the list of submitted questions. And if you're not able to put things in the chat, don't worry. There'll be an opportunity at the end. We could just call out questions, God willing. Okay. This is, I think, something that people wonder about a lot. Is there halacha with regard to buying from stores owned by Jews, especially if they are conveniently located? In other words, do I have halachic obligation to buy from other Jews? Is there no halachic benefit to buying from other Jews? How do we view that? And very much a related question someone else submitted: to what extent is there an obligation or preference to buy from a Shomer Shabbos store? You'll see many, many times there are advertisements from stores, or companies, and they want you to know that they're Shomer Shabbos. It's very nice that they're Shomer Shabbos. Does that obligate me in some way to buy from them? What about buying products manufactured by a Shomer Shabbos company, both when shopping in a Shomer Shabbos store and in a non-Shomer Shabbos store? So just interesting questions. So let's sort of gradually work our way up here. First of all, just intuitively, we can certainly appreciate that all things being equal, I'm doing a chesed by buying a product from somebody. Surely we can understand that. Surely we can appreciate that. I obviously have a unique mitzvah of looking out for the needs of my fellow Jews. We have to be kind and courteous and moral and ethical with every human being on this planet. But we do have a special responsibility to our fellow Jews. So there's something to be said before we even go any deeper in. If I'm able to give another Jew parnasa, that obviously is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Is it more than a very nice thing? So there's a very interesting medrash. The Torah says, when you sell something to your friend, or acquire something from your friend, al tonu ishesachiv. Do not afflict each other. That is the very well-known halacha of ona'ah. One is not allowed to overcharge. It actually goes both ways. In other words, if I'm driving by some yard sale and somebody is selling a Honus Wagner rookie card, and they're selling it for 25 cents, and I know that it's worth much more than that, but they don't know. There's also a problem with my buying it for the sale price when I know something that the seller doesn't know. So the issue of unfair pricing could go both ways. But in any event, that is a halacha specifically regarding my interactions with other Jews, that I'm not allowed to overcharge. I have to be honest with everybody. But this unique halacha that I'm not allowed to overcharge is specific for other Jews. But there's a fascinating medrash that it says in the medrash, and if I remember correctly, the Ramah cites this. It says in the medrash that you see the Torah is telling you that when you make acquisitions, you should be doing it miyad amisecha, from your friend. Who's your friend? Your friend is your fellow Jew. So the Medrash says you see from the language of the Torah that there is a directive to buy from Jews when you can. Now, that's a very nice concept, but the big question is to what extent? To what extent does that mean? So some poskim talk about percentages. Some poskim say, in other words, let's say I can get the same product from a Jewish merchant and a non-Jewish merchant. And the Jewish merchant, I'm going to have to pay 20% more. Is that within the realm of what I'm supposed to be doing? Is that not within the realm of what I'm supposed to be doing? So poskim say different things. Some poskim say that if the difference is less than a sixth of the total price, I should spend the extra money to give business to my fellow Jew. It's a very interesting thing to think about. Ramosha Feinstein says that it doesn't have to be a specific fraction, a specific ratio. It's for you what's a significant amount. I mean, when you think about it for a second, if I'm buying a car for $20,000, okay, and so I don't know, we're all different. For some people, $500 is a drop in the bucket. If you're one of those people, let's talk afterwards. But for other people, $20,000 was a lot of money for me to be spending, and $500 on top of that is way too much for me to even think about. So I think this is the more common approach taken practically, that it's a preference to buy from your fellow Jew. It's more than just being a nice person. There's a halachic idea of buying from a fellow Jew, but it's certainly not an obligation. And if the price differential, or of course the quality differential, is for you something that's very significant, one certainly shouldn't feel obligated to buy from their fellow Jew. But if they're able to do it, it's a wonderful thing. What about the question of being Shomer Shabbos? So again, let's think about it on two levels. First of all, just intuitively, we all can understand that there are certain challenges to being a merchant in broader society when you're a Shomer Shabbos. That maybe your store isn't open on Shabbos. Maybe there are certain things you can't be doing on Shabbos that your competitors can be doing on Shabbos. So if there's a way to strengthen your Shomer Shabbos merchant, you're doing a beautiful thing. In addition to just helping a fellow Jew, which would seem to be a concept whether or not the person is Shomer Shabbos. If the person is Shomer Shabbos, I'm helping them make a living while they're observing Shabbos. That's a very special thing. It's very interesting. I saw brought down from the Minchas Yitzchak that actually the same concept of the benefit of selling to another Jew, I'm sorry, of purchasing from another Jew, that if the Jew is keeping Torah and mitzvos, that's even like an elevated concept of that idea. So according to that, it would be certainly ideal in halacha that if I have the opportunity to support another Jew, and certainly that opportunity to support a Shomer Shabbos, it's something I should try to be doing. Now, I just want to just mention the elephant in the room a little bit. Many times we're nervous to buy from our fellow Jew because many times our fellow Jew is somebody who sits down the aisle from me in shul. And, I'd love to give that person business. I want to give that person business, but I'm a little bit nervous what's going to happen if it doesn't work out. So I think that's reasonable. I think that's a reasonable concern. I think we have to be honest with ourselves. I think we should understand that we're doing a great chesed, and perhaps even more than a chesed. Perhaps we're even fulfilling a halacha on some level. Not perhaps, according to the Rama, we're fulfilling a halacha on some level. It's probably worth it to give it a shot. But if we have reason to believe, maybe from past experience, maybe we just have a little bit of a hunch that this might not work out well. If we have reason to believe that it's going to cause challenges in relationships and the like, I don't think we should see it as an obligation to buy from another Jew. But again, I think we should try, like with so many other things in life, I think we should try to stretch ourselves. I think we should try to make it work, see if it's feasible. I think that's practical. So that's that idea. Certainly an important concept. Okay, we have a few questions that I think are sort of more of an ethical genre, certainly important. In no particular order, may one use an item they intend to return until they actually take it back to the store? In other words, I bought an overcoat. They have a return policy. I've decided this overcoat is not for me, but I don't have to return it for another 3 weeks or whatever, or another 2 weeks, whatever it is. And in the interim, I don't have a coat, and I'd rather just keep on using the coat until I have to take it back. Is that a problem? One question. Another question. If you buy a box of peaches and one is rotten, so you're going to be taking the box of peaches back to the store, may one eat the others in the interim? Uh, the store is going to throw them out. The store is not putting the box of peaches, with 1 or 2 or 3 missing back on the shelf. So it's going to go in the garbage. And I'm going to go back to the store and I'm going to ask them for a full refund. But some of the peaches are in fine shape. May I eat the peaches that are fine and still ask the store for a full refund? It's an interesting question. Um, Person, there's a discount if you buy X number of a given item. Okay. And if you buy 5 of a given item, it's a discount. I only intend on using 2 of the given item. But my plan is to buy 5, get the discount, and then return 3. And essentially get 2 at the discount price that they normally only offer for 5. Is that all right? Is that not all right? Okay, so just to give people a little bit to think about. Let's address them in reverse order. I definitely think that last one is not okay. In other words, the store absolutely had in mind, the whole concept was that they want to encourage buying a certain amount. If you didn't have any intention of actually really purchasing all 5 of them and you're just doing a workaround, I don't think that's appropriate. I can't imagine if you went up to me, the metric is as follows. If you walked up to the store manager and said, I plan on doing this, is that okay with you? Now, it's distinctly possible that a given employee shrugs their shoulders and says, I couldn't care less. I just want to know when I go home. But that doesn't count. If you'd ask the store manager, did you mind if I do that? I can't imagine, if they were speaking candidly with you, that they would say, sure, no problem. Doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't think that's the way we're supposed to. I don't think that's the way we're supposed to live. Can I say it's theft? I can't tell you it's theft. Can I say it's the way we're supposed to be? It's definitely not the way we should do it. I think the basic metric of, if I could ask them behind the counter what they think about it, if they wouldn't like it, I don't think we should be doing it. Now, using that same barometer, so it's very interesting just to think on a purely technical level for a second. So forgive me, I don't pay much attention to peach prices. A box of peaches, let's say a box of peaches, I'm really sorry if I'm getting it wrong. Let's say there's a dozen of peaches in a container and it goes for $4. Did that make sense? $5? I don't know, whatever it is. Okay, let's say it's a box of peaches for $5. Okay. Theoretically speaking, if one of the peaches is rotten and the other 11 are fine, on a purely halachic level, certainly if it's Jew with Jew, I think all you have a right to ask a refund for is the value of one peach. I think that's the case. Now, having said that, I'm confident that any store in the area, Jewish, non-Jewish, if you came to them with the whole package and it was sold as a package, and you came and you said, look, one of the peaches in this package is rotten. I didn't buy this package intended to get a rotten peach. I'd like a refund. I'm sure that they would be happy to give you a full refund. I'm sure that's the case. I'm sure that's the case. I think what the questioner is assuming, that the other, 10 peaches are just going to get thrown out if they're in perfectly fine condition. I think you're right about that. And see, in this case, I don't see a problem eating the peaches as long as you bought this in good faith. In other words, if you saw in the store that one of the peaches was rotten and you say to yourself, this is quite the deal. I'm going to buy this package of peaches. I know one of the peaches is rotten. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to eat all the peaches except one. I'm going to come back and they're going to give me a full refund. That's wrong. I don't think that's ethical. But if you bought it in good faith, I think the assumption of the questioner is correct, that they're not going to put them back on the shelf. What do they care? So I think it actually, in that case, will be fine to eat the peaches. That's a very different scenario than the first scenario about buying at a discount. This is an interesting question. You bought the winter coat. You've decided you're going to bring it back. And you want to know if it's wrong to wear it a few times until you bring it back. So I just want to be very clear about something. What I'm confident is not all right is I have a simcha coming up. Looking for a nice tie to wear at the simcha. I come into the store on Thursday evening. Simcha's on Shabbos. I buy the tie, make sure to keep my receipt, wear it 2 or 3 times over Shabbos, come back on Sunday and return it for full discount. That's wrong. That's not ethical. If in good faith, if I bought this winter coat thinking it was going to be the right winter coat for me, and it turns out, I don't know, it's too heavy, it's too big, it's too small, whatever it is, but the return policy is I need to return it within 2 weeks, and I haven't had a chance to return it yet, and it's cold outside, and I don't have a coat to wear, I don't think that's a problem. Again, as long as it was in good faith, I think that's a basic premise here. I will mention that if you do any sort of damage to it or significant wear and tear to it, and it would be, and you know that you've damaged it in some way unintentionally, but you know that you've damaged it in some way, and now you bring it back for a full refund. That I think would be halachically problematic. So I don't think it's a problem to wear it a few more times as long as it was a good faith purchase. But if you do wear it a few more times, you better make sure you don't get it dirty or you don't damage it, because then the only way you can get a full refund is to make sure in the store they understand what happened. Okay. If there's something with a hechsher, okay. So this is the classic question of someone whose rabbi isn't a quick responder. How many people can say they fall into that category? So a person's at the store and they see ashgacha that they think is they're not sure. They just don't recognize the ashgacha, and forget the rabbi. They even tried to contact Barbara Price and she wasn't available. We know that's the primary person to go to normally, but in any event, they don't know. They're at the store. They can't contact anybody. They don't know if it's a good hashgacha or not. So they buy it. And they figure to themselves, if it ends up not being a good hashgacha, I'll just bring it back for return. Is that all right? I think that's fine. I think stores have return policies. I think it's understood. There can be all kinds of reasons that you buy something that you don't know if you're going to want it or not. I think that's a classic example of return policy. Okay. Okay, this is a really, really important question. Okay. You go to a service provider, whatever exactly the service is, and you're done with the service, and you say, okay, you pull out your checkbook. If for those of us who still have checkbooks, you pull out your credit card, whatever it is. You say, okay, how much is it? And they say, no, I accept cash only. Now, you ask, that's an interesting policy. Why do you accept cash only? And the answer that you receive is, it ends up being less expensive that way. Why does it end up being less expensive that way? Because I don't have to report taxes. Question, is that what are you supposed to do as a consumer in that case? You're the customer. Is that your problem? Is that not your problem? Um, Really, really important question. And then the follow-up question to that is, does it make a difference if the vendor is Jewish or not Jewish? Okay, now I would imagine that there are I would not be surprised if different rabbis would answer this question differently, and it could very well be that I'm even misinformed on the civil law here. My impression is when a vendor doesn't charge sales tax, if I'm using the right terminology, um, they're they're the ones who have done the wrong. In other words, it's the responsibility of the vendor to report their sales and to pay taxes accordingly. Um, Dina de Malchus Dina, the law of the land is the law. It wasn't long ago in Shul, actually, we were discussing, I don't even remember the context, but I remember Mr. Hornestay was sitting to my right. Dina de Malchus Dina, and if anywhere Dina de Malchus Dina applies, there's a lot of discussion where exactly does the law of the land, does the law apply. But one place that's clear is in monetary law, certainly in taxes. So this is not just unethical in civil law, but unethical in halacha to cheat on taxes. Halacha would say you can't cheat on taxes. Okay, so just to go step by step, if the vendor is asking the shiloh, the vendor wants to know, a Jewish vendor wants to know, may I, charge cash so I don't have to report taxes? So I would tell you that's a halachic problem. Okay. So now where does my responsibility begin and end, not as the vendor, but as the consumer? So my understanding is that my issue here is I'm facilitating sinful conduct, right? The same way that we would have issues, there are all kinds of shahs we probably have discussed before. Is there an issue with giving non-kosher food to a Jew? You know what I mean? Is there an issue with facilitating someone's desecration of Shabbos? These are important issues. Is there an issue with facilitating someone else cheating on taxes? That's a halachic problem. Now, this concept of my responsibility for you seems to be specifically for my fellow Jew. So I would say it's a halachic problem to facilitate my fellow Jew cheating on taxes. And by paying cash, when it's clear that the context is that they're doing it to avoid taxes, I would say the halacha is we shouldn't pay in cash. I would say, I'm very sorry. I'll be happy to pay you more to cover the taxes, or I'm sorry, I can't do business with you. But that's what I would say. And honestly, I would say that's our obligation. And I want to be very clear. I don't just mean it's the menschlich thing to do. I mean it. I mean the same way that if somebody would call me with a shaila about buying non-kosher food for a Jew, it's in my mind, it's a very similar case. Now, I don't. Again, this is obviously an awkward situation. I think we all understand that. I don't think it's my obligation to toe the line if it's a non-Jewish vendor. Yeah, if somebody wants to do that, kol hakavod, but I don't think it's my obligation to do that. But if it's a Jewish vendor, I think it's my obligation to toe that line. Okay. Okay, also an interesting question. Let's say there's a Jewish service provider who's selling religious materials, and you become aware that if a person's from, he charges one price, and if a person's not from, he inflates the price. I hope I got that question correct. Yeah, thank you. So is there a halachic problem with my supporting this business? So it's an interesting, um, so it's funny, as I'm saying it out, I think I'm understanding the question. I mean, I thought I understood the question when I read it, but I think I'm understanding the question a little bit better. I think the intent in the question is that he's taking less knowledgeable customers for a ride. I think that's okay. I didn't process that originally. Okay, it's a very, very interesting question. Um, I don't think it's a halachic problem with buying from the person. In other words, don't think I don't think what would be the halachic problem? So the halachic problem would be that my purchasing from him is facilitating what he's doing. If it's facilitating what he's doing, I think it's very indirect. So I don't think, in other words, I think that's very different than the taxes situation. You know, in the taxes situation, it's very clear what's going on. I don't think it's the same. Now, if I'm aware that the person is acting in an unethical way, like in any situation, I have a mitzvah. There's nothing wrong with my saying to the person, I don't think I heard that conversation before, and I don't know why you're charging me half of why you're charging them. I don't think that's right, but I don't think there'd be a halachic problem with my buying from the person. Oh, that's what I would say. It's an interesting question. Um, okay, there's only one more submitted question, and I'm happy to go to the chat. This is really more of a Hilchos Shabbos question, but it's a good Hilchos Shabbos question. Okay, I want a non-Jew to buy something for me. I want a non-Jew to buy something for me, and I know that the purchase is going to happen on Shabbos. I know the purchase is going to happen on Shabbos. Is that a problem? Uh, so if it's set up that I'm telling them they need to go on Shabbos, like I call up my friend and I say, I just saw in the advertisements that there's a big sale at whatever store. It's Saturday only. Hamashomer Shabbos. Could you go buy it for me? So that's a halachic problem. If I ask the person to buy something for me sometime over the course of the next week, and it's clear to me that the time that will be convenient for them is to go on Shabbos, that's actually not my problem. Because what I'm asking them to do is I'm asking them to buy something for me at some point, and they're doing it on Shabbos. But if the nature of my request of them is specifically, whether it be that the request is explicitly to do it on Shabbos, whether it be that I call them up Friday afternoon and I say, I have a big favor to ask you. It's Lichtmenschik in 20 minutes, and I need something for Saturday night. Do you mind buying it for me? I mean, I'm asking them to buy it on Shabbos. So those things would be halachically problematic. Um, there could be certain medical situations where it's all right to ask a non-Jew to buy a product for me on Shabbos. That I think would require a specific shiloh. Okay, thank you for sharing that question. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat now. Oh, wow. Okay. Really interesting question. Okay. Is it all right to try an item in a brick and mortar store and then buy the item in the correct size in an online version of the same store? In other words, so I see a product, see it online. It looks like a great price. Looks like an interesting product. But I don't know. I need to feel it. I need to try it on. So I go into the store. So my guess is that it makes, and I appreciate how the questioner put it in. Um, my guess is that if you walked up, similar logic to what we mentioned before, if you walked up to the counter of such a store and you said, "Hi, I want to buy it from your website, your stores, or I mean, that's not this store, but your franchise here of a broader company." Um, my guess is they'd be very happy for you to do that. What I think is more of an issue, and I think it's a real halachic problem, unless you tell me that you ask at the store and they say, we don't care. Um, you see the product on Amazon, and it's not that store selling it online. It's Amazon selling it online, which it's fine to buy things from Amazon, but you don't want to just buy it from Amazon. So you go into given store and it's interesting. You take the time of whatever employee of the store to show you around. You, you know, block whoever else from looking at the product, and all of it, you don't have the slightest intention of buying it from these people, but it's just going to help you buy it ultimately from Amazon. My guess is that if you were to ask the store and share your intentions, my guess is they would say, we've got other things to do with our time. Um, I don't know the answer to that question, but to me, I think that would only be ethical if you would ask them and ask if they minded. Um, I hope that makes sense. Now, if there's an honest to goodness a possibility that you would really, again, trying to be honest with ourselves here and with God. If honest to goodness, you would, it's very possible you're going to buy it in store. Then of course that's a different story. Um, this question: is it reasonable to give a preference to a YISE member over a Jew from another community? What's the Shiloh? No, I'm just kidding. It's a very interesting question. Um, I think the way to view this in halacha is I can give my business to whoever I want to give my business to. Maybe maybe I give my business. Maybe I have gratitude to you because you had me over for Shabbos lunch once, and I want to give you. I mean, I can give you my business for whatever reason I want to. Um, so if it's somebody from Shul and you enjoy the fact, you see them every Shabbos at Kiddush, whatever it is, you want to give them some business. I don't think that's anything to be bashful of. What I think, just to apply sort of the earlier discussion, let's say I have a neighbor who's not a Jew, a lovely person, and they have a certain business, and I could buy the product from them, or I could buy the product from another Jew. And actually, the other Jew's a fine person. I don't have anything against the other Jew, but I have a closer connection with my non-Jewish neighbor. Same price, by the way. Not. So there, I think we should say it's very nice that I have a good relationship with a non-Jewish neighbor, but I have to see other Jews as mishpacha. So all things being equal, I should be giving the business to another Jew. But Jew and Jew, I could have any kind of reason to prefer one person over the other. I think that's fine. Um, mm, wow, really interesting. Store employee, not an owner, offers a discount, such as not charging for the bag tax. Is it okay to accept? It's a very interesting question. Now, again, maybe I'm mistaken in my understanding of things. My guess is well, I mean, the bag tax is a rule, right? I mean, the bag tax is it's county law. So I think I would say the same distinction if the if the proprietor is Jewish or not Jewish. Right? I think if the proprietor is Jewish, I think it's not appropriate for them to not be charged with the bag tax. That's the rule. That's the law. You like the law, you don't like the law. We live here. We have gratitude to the county. This is the rule they set. Um, I think if it's a non-Jewish owned company, we don't have to make a stink over it. I think that's how I would answer the question. I have to confess I never really thought about it. I'm embarrassed to say I never really thought about it. I appreciate you raising it. Interesting question. Um, okay. Want to just clarify something. Um, and we're all entitled to our own opinions. Um, there was a question posed before about charging more to less knowledgeable people than to knowledgeable people. And again, I think the intent of the question was that the customer perceives that the proprietor is misleading people who are less knowledgeable. That's an important issue. Um, there are, I'm sure, I mean, I know there are business people in our community who feel that there are individuals who, uh, for whatever reason it is, they want to give these individuals discounts. I don't think it's a problem to give people discounts. In other words, if a person decides, by the way, similar to what we discussed before, I can give my business to whoever I want to give my business to. If I decide, if I decide that 25 years ago you did something nice to me and I want to give you a discount when I run my business, that's my prerogative. I don't think there's anything unethical about that. What I think is not appropriate is to artificially inflate prices. But I just want to. Somebody was asking something. I hope I'm making sense. Um, um, oh, that's interesting. Okay. The question had been asked, and maybe that was the initial intent of the question. Maybe I misunderstood the original question. I had asked the question about if I want to buy something, and I don't know if it's a good hashgacha or not, so I buy it. And I say to myself, I'll come back later. If it's not a good hashgacha, I'll bring it back. Let's say it's a perishable product, and the known policy of the store is that they'll give you a refund. In other words, if you say that you want to bring it back, they'll give you a refund, but you know that what's going to happen is they're gonna throw it in the garbage because they don't feel comfortable putting it back on the shelf. And you don't even know if you want this thing in the first place. You don't know if it's going to be a good hashgacha in the first place. I hear that question. I'm not so sure. I'm not sure. Honest to goodness, I think probably what makes the most sense is they ask the manager how they would feel about that. It could be the manager would be very happy for you to buy it, because it's very likely that you're going to keep it. I don't know. But I think really the rule of thumb is what would the person say if you would ask them? And again, not the random person in the aisle, but so I think many of these cases it's intuitive what they would say. This one, I don't know. I don't know what they would answer, but I think I'd be reluctant to buy it in that case unless I knew what the answer is. Go for it. Um, yes, I very much appreciate that. I tried to sort of include that in the I tried to include that, but I didn't do a good job of it. Someone wrote to me, there are times where a business will charge less for cash, PayPal, because they don't want to start paying credit card fees and the like. And in other words, or by the way, they have no interest in dealing with a bounced check, right? In other words, that's also a compelling point. So the fact that somebody is doing it for cash doesn't necessarily mean that they're being unethical. But for the sake of the example, let's say it's very clear. They say to you, I'm going to charge you cash. They say to you as follows. Well, they explain it's because of taxes, but I appreciate the point. Yes, I do think it's worth noting that it could be that they're not accepting certain methods of payment, not because they plan on violating the law. Thank you for raising that. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that, Minash. I'm not gonna. I don't know. I'm not. Yeah. Um. It's interesting. Okay. Um, I think these were really interesting questions, and I think it's very valuable for us to get together as a group. I don't know how much light I shed, but I think it's very valuable for us to get together as a group and be so concerned about morals and ethics. And it's very much the way of our Torah, and it's very much the way of our people. Um, it's fundamentally the way of our people in Torah. I just can't emphasize enough. We know how many people at a time that people are saying things. People say things about us so much more, at least in a public way. And we know one of the things that's said about us has to do with money. So our way is to be extremely scrupulous and extremely moral. And it's all the more so in these times, I think, incumbent upon us to recognize that and remember that. And so I think these questions are fundamentally beneficial to each and every one of us. So thank you very much. Anyone want to call out a question? Maybe you didn't, weren't able to put it in the chat.
Well, not a question, but actually on the thing you just said about how important it is. I know there have been a number of stories I've seen over the years where there were cities that had riots and all kinds of things, and there was a Jewish store that nobody touched because the people who lived there knew that that person always treated them fairly.
Yeah, it's very nice. Thank you very much.
On the question of the two-tier price system, besides the ethics of it, isn't there a possibility of honor?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's Ona is Ona, just to make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you, Mr. Hornestay. Ona is overcharging. It's very interesting. It's very hard to nail down the issues of overcharging today, because you could make so many different arguments. You're paying for convenience, you're paying for my hours, you're paying, you know what I mean? It's so hard to compare. But in the very same store, if the going rate is X, and all of a sudden someone walks in and they have to pay literally double, yeah, that could very well be a prohibition of Ona. Yes, thank you for raising that. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I want to thank, besides for organization, I'm pretty sure it was either Miriam's idea or Miriam relaying the suggestion to be about shopping. I think this was a very interesting discussion. Thank you all very much, and we should just be zochet to keep on making a Kiddush Hashem, and a Kiddush Hashem is not only what people on the street see, it's what we ourselves see, what our families see, what our neighbors see, so on and so forth. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you for joining.
Tov and Chodesh Tov.
Thank you to you as well. Thank you.